So welcome everyone to Charlotte Mecklenburg Library's Parent Lunch and Learn on supporting emergent readers. Today we are joined by Tara Kehoe, the children's librarian at our South Park Regional Library. So I'm going to turn it over to her and let her take it away. But then just know that these programs are pretty informal as well. So feel free to eat your lunch. If you need to pop off or do whatever with your child, feel free to do that. And I'm looking forward to hearing what Tara has to say.
Awesome. Thank you, Elise, and welcome everyone. Thanks for being with us today. Yes, definitely informal here. You can put, if you don't want to, be a speaker or something, you can always put something in chat and Elise can stop me if I'm not making sense, or if you want to add on or just want me to clarify on what we're talking about today. But my name is Tara Kehoe, and I'm a children's librarian at South Park. I don't normally dress in Oktoberfest gear, but we just had a fall festival here, so I'm in a costume today. So that's fun and part of the job when you're a children's librarian. We are going to talk about how you can support your emergent reader today. And just like a thumbs up or something, or a thumbs down if you can't hear me, or if I need to change anything. Are we good? Okay, cool. All right, and then we do have these guidelines. I know a lot of you guys have joined in before, so just take a quick look at this slide with our guidelines for virtual programming. This is a schedule. It's not hard and fast, but I'm gonna definitely be done by 1 o'clock. And if it's getting close to 1 o'clock and I'm still blabbing, please stop me. But definitely questions. This is an open forum. Okay. All right. So we have all been introduced already. I'm going to go over the objectives of what we hopefully will know by the end of today's Lunch and Learn session. So you all are going to know what the definition of emerging reader is. You're going to know evidence-based, research-supported best practices to support your emerging reader. And you're going to know where to find the right books for your child at any age. When you leave this session, hopefully you will be able to use those best practices developed from evidence-based research to support your emerging reader, and use the library resources to support your emerging reader. And maybe most important, encourage your child to be a lifelong lover of reading. Okay, so what I'd like to do is kind of start with that definition, and I really want to reframe. There's a belief that the emerging reader is when the child starts to put together the phonics and can independently turn that into a word and maybe assign some meaning, right? As if that was a discrete time period. And for sure that is a time period for many, many students. That happens in like first or second grade. Some readers maybe go more towards third grade when they put that together. Some readers already know how to read when they start kindergarten, right? But that aside, we're really going to reframe what we mean by emerging reader and see it more as the continuum. Okay, so I know Chantel has a 1-year-old, and I was so happy to see that because that's really exemplifying what I'm trying to say here, that an emerging reader starts at birth. As soon as your little one is born, they're reading, they're understanding. It's all a big process. It really is understood to start from birth and go through school age, which doesn't mean 5th grade. That means like 12th grade, guys. And I'm going to say and beyond, right? Because we're all readers and we're all learning, and everything kind of piles up. So that's what we mean when we say emerging reader. Okay. I do have a poll, and I think, can I launch it? That's the first poll. Let's see. Elise, do you have a second poll to launch? No? Okay, that's all right. It was only just to keep everyone clicking away or whatever. Okay, so this is just a question I want everyone to think about. What is the thing that predicts reading success? What do you all think? You can type in the chat, you can just think about it. You can unmute if you want to be a speaker, that's fine. There is one key indicator of reading success. What do you all think that is?
How much we read to our children, like how young they're exposed to language, maybe. I think those things help.
Basically, Chantel is right. Time. Time spent reading has been shown by research to be the number one indicator of reading success. Okay, so I'm going to get a little bit more into why this is so important later on, but let's just remember that. Okay, so time spent reading could be reading the same book over and over and over and over again. Okay, it could be reading a book that's below your reading level. That doesn't matter. It's that clocking that time. Okay. All right. So how can you support your reader? This is arguably the most important slide. So if you take away one bit of information, only one, this would be my choice. Okay. So access to books. And then the slogan is that books should be not just available to your little one, but unavoidable. Okay. So like everywhere, as much as you can possibly have them, right? And I like to say this a lot because I know that people love books and they love reading and they love the library, and I love all those things too. And that's why I work here. But I am not a precious person with books. I'm not the one who's like, oh, don't hold it by the thing. Books get used, they're going to get damaged. That's okay. Eventually, we weed them, we replace them with new books. I'm not saying like just tear them up or whatever, but let little ones explore them. Okay, unavoidable. You can support your reader by shared reading, the active reading practices. I imagine some of y'all have been to Elise's or other library staff's active reading workshop training. Active reading training, active reading workshops. There's two, one for younger age, one for a little older age. But the concepts are the same. Active reading is sharing a book with your child as opposed to reading to your child, right? So it's a conversation about the book together. And that is how you can support your reader. Giving them choices and letting them be active to choose what they want to read. And going back to that time spent reading thing, nothing is too easy, right? So let them have their choices. So it's really important to try to bring the customer to the library. So if you're picking out books as often as you possibly can, bring your customer to the library so they can pick out the book that they want, right? And we have a digital library as well. So if there's something that prevents you from physically coming to the branch one day, you can give them those browsing choices even online. And repetition actually is. I know if any of y'all are parents like I am, I'm sure you've had that book that you're just like, if I read this book one more time, I don't know what's going to happen. We've all been there. We've all been there. I get it. But that repetition is so, so important. So think about it from their perspective. They are like identifying with this book as part of their day or their night or their routine or whatever. Something in this book is speaking to them. And that's so, so important. We want to capture that. So it's okay to do the repetition. It's not going to last forever, I promise. And nothing is too easy, right? There is no book that's too easy. I like to encourage parents to say, because I hear a lot of parents in the children's room say, that's too easy, pick something that's better, right? So I would like to say, okay, well, your idea behind that is right, that you want to be involved and you want to encourage them. And you want them to reach out and expand their reading horizons, right? But let's think and, not or, right? So whatever it is they want to read, great, let's get that. And, I read this when I was a kid and I loved it. Let's just try it too, okay? The library is free, which means like, let's not limit, okay? And then mirrors and windows refers to the concept that every child needs to see themselves reflected in the books that they're exposed to, right? So books should show people that look like them. It should show people that have, a lifestyle that's similar, maybe a single parent household, maybe two parents, maybe two moms, whatever it is, they need to have access so that they can see that this is about them. And windows means they need to open up a window and see people that don't look like them, that look different, to expose them to the way our wonderful world is. Okay, so that means that's why It's so important to have diversity, especially with our youth materials. Okay, so this is super, super important to support your reader by making sure they have those mirrors and windows. Literacy extension activities are a fun way, especially if you have like, you know, the kind of kid who's like real all over the place and doesn't seem to want to sit for too long. And they're like, read one page and then they're off, right? So a literacy extension activity really helps to draw the outside world into what you're reading. So if you read a book about rainbows, next time it rains and the sun comes out, go outside together and see if you can go rainbow hunting and find that book, right? We do a lot of literacy extension activities at the library here, like flannel board activities, and those are fun, but they're not just for fun. They're really tying in that book and making it come to life for the little ones. Okay, I'm not saying you have to like sit at home and like make a whole storyboard or anything. This is like, if this is something that you want to do to, you know, but it can be just as simple as, remember when we read that book about, you know, red lights and green lights and yellow lights? Well, look, now we're driving in the car and I see this yellow light, that, you know, that kind of thing. So you're extending the literacy out into their world and having a conversation about it, even when you're not reading. And also drawing and writing. So when I was doing research for this presentation, I learned something new, that when little ones draw, like they scribble with a, you know, a pencil or a crayon or whatever, they're writing, you know, that's what they're doing. That's their writing, that's their work. And you can see them sometimes, like if you just give them, they look very serious, like this is, you know, and you're like, it's just a scribble, right? That's how they write first. So drawing and writing are very connected to reading. So when they're learning to read, they're also learning to write. So pushing those things together really supports both. Okay. And definitely how you can support your reader is making sure they have good role models, right? So let's not just talk the talk, let's walk the walk. They need to see that you're reading too, that this is something that you value in your life. Make the time for it. Okay, we're going to save a lot of time by getting rid of some things that are not so important. So don't worry, you'll have plenty of time to do your own reading, but it's great for them to see that you have books around, that you're reading. You might be reading like a news article on your phone, but it's okay to show them, be like, I'm not just, you know, playing Candy Crush, I'm reading an article right now. And then I could do I couldn't because I'm not an expert on it, but somebody could do an entire lunch and learn on bilingual learners and how complex that is, right? But the bottom line or the bottom lines of bilingual learners, those are learners that might speak another language at home and are learning a different language at school. It's a great exercise for your mind to learn in two languages. It's a great exercise for your mind to read in two languages. So even if you don't speak another language, you can read. We have a lot of books that you know, English and Spanish, for example, or other languages too. So it's called code switching, to read both words at the same time. It's really wonderful for your mind to do that. For those bilingual learners, they might show a slight delay in speech, reading, and it's okay to read in a native language. It's okay to read a book in English and then ask questions and do the active reading, you know, discussions in your native language. It's okay to switch back and forth. There's no hard and fast rules. So you can just do what makes sense for your family. The bibliography at the end of the presentation has some further reading if you're interested in learning more about bilingual learners. Okay. Is there any like questions or feedback at this point? Are we good? Okay. All right, so how can you find books? We're going to start with an electronic book finding exercise. And if you're like me, you're like, I'm like a note taker and I try to like write down all the websites and all the stuff whenever I'm taking a class. You don't have to do that. I did make a one-page thing with specifically some of this information on it because it's just a lot to take in. But you can find good books. I love the award-winning books. The American Library Association gives out youth media awards every year. And they're in all different categories. There's picture books, there's the art awards. The Newbery is arguably the one that we're most familiar with. And usually that's a chapter book or a J fiction book. But all of those awards are good. There's lists on there. There's lists for reluctant readers. There's so much good stuff. And so you can just go to the American Library Association website and find the Children's Media Awards. But I do want to draw your attention, since we're talking about emerging readers, that time when they're learning the phonics and they're in that like section of reading, we call it easy readers. Okay, so there's an award that's fairly new that's called the Geisel Award that finds the best easy readers of the year. And I love to refer people to this award because easy readers are historically just like not the best books because they're limited language, they're limited vocabulary. It's not like a really complex story. So when you look at the back list of some of the award winners from past years, and then if you take those out, you'll read them, you'll see why they won awards. There's some really good ones on there. So it helps you like find something that is going to be good. And I think that that's the case. It's always a safe bet to look at the award winners, to look at those lists. And you can also find on the cmlibrary.org website, which is the library's website, we have created, like library staff has created lists, and your handout shows you like a pathway and how you can find those lists. Basically, it's this search term, #CMLibrary. And then you're going to end up finding things, and you can put in your search terms like kindergarten books, and you're going to get like a whole bunch of lists that we've created, and we update them so they're new and they're things that we have at the library and things that we recommend. So that's a good way to find things. You could find books about trucks or whatever your little one is into. And then ebooks just means electronic books. You can find those online in our resources. NC Kids is really the place to go for your ebooks. You can also get electronic audiobooks, which you can listen to, and you download those for free. You can take them with you in your device. The other resource that I really like is Tumble Books. So those are like, it'll show you a graphic of the picture book. A lot of them read out to them. And then they even have cool things at the end, like quizzes and things like that. So these are resources that are free to you and a really great way to support your reader. Again, most everything on this slide is in a handout. Okay, and then we're going to talk about where you're going to find the different books and what do these things mean in the library, right? So Charlotte Mecklenburg Library has 20 branches. Well, I guess it's technically 19 now because Maine is about to close, but 19 branches, there's a lot. But we all use a similar system, so you're not going to get like lost just because you have never been to like Mountain Island before. Okay, so I'm going to go through. See, oh, I have a hand raised. Yes, Tasha.
You said you referring to the flyers or the handouts. What is that? Like, is this something that we got emailed?
No, Elise is going to send it to you when we're done. Don't worry.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for asking, Tasha. Okay, so I'm starting with board books just because a lot of times it's the littlest ones who use these first. A board book really refers to the binding, like it's physically made of cardboard, and that's something that's harder to tear. These are good for the chewing stage. These are good for the really rough stage, like, from one to however rough your child is, for however long. That went on for a long time with my kids. A lot of times board books are just picture books, just bound in this format. But some of them, like the one in this picture, Black and White by Tana Hoban, is like a concept very unique to this young age group. So every library has a section of where the board books are. And those are always available from one. That's a great place just to really start when you have like a baby. Okay, and then we're going to get into picture books. So picture books, active reading can be done with nonfiction. It can be done with graphic novels. It can be done with chapter books. But the traditional way that we're thinking about active reading is a picture book. This is a huge section. It goes on. And really the idea behind a picture book is that you don't ever age out of it, right? There's beautiful picture books that I, as an adult, just get so much out of, right? So there's not an idea that once you can read on your own, you should leave these picture books behind, come back to them, use them for shared reading. They're wonderful. They contain vocabulary, like such a high level of vocabulary and rare words that usually the rare words are found more in picture books even than chapter books, which are like technically for an older age. So just remember how important this is. And then Lexile, I'll get into what that means, but many, many picture books have a high Lexile level. All right, I'm gonna actually show you. Okay, you all can see the catalog, right? Let's look at where the wild things are. Okay, so this is a picture book. This is a classic, very been around for a long time. Okay, so in our catalog, most of the books, you can find what the Lexile level is. Lexile is a numerical way to sort of quantify how complicated the language is in a book. Okay, so those of you with kids that are in school will probably hear this word thrown around by teachers. And if you want to see, so here we are in the record for where the wild things are. If you would like to see what the Lexile for where the wild things are, let's go into full detail. And okay, so let's just remember the Lexile is 740. So that's just a number out of, yeah. Okay. All right, let's jump back into just a brief explanation of active reading. So we talked about reading a book with your child instead of reading a book to your child. But the main things to really remember when you're reading are the ABCs. Practice those ABCs. So A is, excuse me, A is for asking questions, and those questions can be can have a right or wrong answer, or they could be open-ended. B is for building vocabulary. So all those rare words that are in our awesome picture books, you can find like one or two in a reading and identify them and say, oh, I wonder what that word means. And you guys can come up with a definition of those vocabulary words together in the context of reading the book. So building vocabulary is your B. And then C is connecting to your child's world, right? So a lot of those open-ended questions kind of invite that connection, but connecting to a child's world means, oh, look, she's on a tire swing. Do you remember the time that we were on the swing when we went to that playground? And then they see that this is something interactive, this is something for them. So just those ABCs, if that is a very, very important, helpful, it's not a complicated concept. This is just research shows how much this helps when you're reading with a little one. So let's practice those. Okay. So we're still in our sections discussion here. And we are now in the section that we call easy readers. The call number is here. It's an E, just like picture books, and then it's author's last name. So I kind of said before something a little bit negative about easy readers, that they weren't like the best books. Fox the Tiger has won a Geisel Award. This is a really good book, but they're very limited by that limited vocabulary, right? So they're trying to capture what a reader who is learning could feasibly understand. Okay, so if you only have, 100 words or something to work with, you can imagine how limited your story would be. That's just what you're dealing with. There's a lot of white space, very simple concepts, and high interest. So I'm going to show you the next slide just to show you. This is a good example of what our little ones can see when they're looking through our easy reader section. So hopefully you have somebody that, it's like, oh, look, they love Pete the Cat. Oh, look, there's a Pete the Cat easy reader. So this is going back to why it's so important to bring the customer to the library. Of course, your little ones. If you're like, oh, if I bring home Barbie, like, we got it. But it's great for them to see those choices, and they might surprise you and be like, oh, I didn't know you liked Lego Ninjago. And they're like, oh yeah, everybody likes Lego Ninjago at school. Okay. Our earliest. So again, we reframed what we meant by emerging reader. And we agree to that, that's fine. But of course, there is a time when a reader is putting together those phonics and they're working this out, right? So they're in this easy reader, they're getting there, right? There's like a moment where you're like, oh, well, they can actually kind of read, what do I do? Most of our collection is browsing. That means it's something that's hard to find in the catalog, but when you go in and you can physically look through, like at South Park, we have a bin with really little skinny paperback books that they can look through. They're flimsy, they're small. If you lose one, they're not that expensive to replace. But that's the best place to start because they're so little and it's such a small amount of words that they can handle. I put a picture of Bob books in here because I think that's a great place to start. We do have collections of Bob books, so they're bound in more of like a book form, but they're all together. And each little one contains like 10 little mini books. We also have, I'll just go here just so you can see, this is the kaleidoscope. This refers to the publisher, but these are very, very simple books. A lot of the pictures show like actual people, like their photographs. And these are browsable too. So they start with the very easiest level. It starts with A, that's, has the simplest language, and then goes up by the alphabet to get a little bit more complicated. But if you have your little one with you and you're looking through a bin of these kaleidoscope books and they're like, oh, look, it's ice fishing. I love ice fishing. Like they might find something in there that speaks to them. Again, it's very simple, but a good place to start. So just easy readers, the browsing section, great place to start. Okay. I talked a little bit about levels. If you can tell by this cute little cartoon here, levels are not something that we really need to focus on. Okay, and that might be a little bit controversial because schools have to focus on leveling a little bit. That's how they can quantify a group of 30 kids, how they're progressing, if they're improving, right? Leveling is not designed for us, for pleasure readers, for recreational readers, for parents to have to understand because it's really complicated. It's complicated for a lot of reasons. It's complicated because publishers use a whole different system depending on who published the book. And this is a library. We don't only buy books like from Scholastic. We buy books from a whole host of publishers. And some of them have A, B, C as their level. And some of them have pre and then 1, 2, 3, right? So by the time you learn all this, you could have read your own book. Don't bother learning all of this. It's too much. It's too complicated for something that is it's too simple for something that's so complicated, and it's too complicated for something that's so simple, if that makes sense. When books are assigned a level, the focus is on the text. The focus is not on the reader. So it completely disregards, like you might have an expert on bugs. Like your child might know everything about bugs, and they can read a book about bugs and understand this at a way higher level of reading, right? So it doesn't acknowledge that. It really doesn't capture nonfiction very well. It doesn't capture poetry very well. And again, it's inconsistent because everybody has their own. I talked a little bit about Lexile, which is a numerical quantification of how difficult the text is, or how difficult the vocabulary within the text is, right? So this is one piece of information. I'm not a numbers person, so this little cartoon makes me laugh so hard. I'm like, somebody's like, can you find me a book on Lexile 600? And I'm like, what? Like I have to look at a chart or something. So I'm going to go back into the catalog for a brief moment. And this is the explanation behind my earlier poll. All right, so we remember that Where the Wild Things Are, which is a picture book. It's about this big. You can read it within 5 minutes. I read it in story time. It's a wonderful book. I love it. Okay. And now let's talk about Stephanie Meyer's Twilight, which is a very thick, long young adult book that I read like most of the world about, what was it, 10 years ago? Okay. So this is a YA book that was beloved by many adults. So let's see what the Lexile of Twilight is. All right, so just in about, and if you go into full details, you can find the Lexile. Okay, so the Lexile of Twilight is 720. And the Lexile of Where the Wild Things Are is 740. So if you were just deciding what was appropriate for your reader who's learning, you would say, okay, first you can handle Twilight. And then when you learn a little bit more about what you're reading, I think it's time for Where the Wild Things Are. Does that make any sense to anybody? It doesn't make any sense. Okay, so that's why we shouldn't. Lexile is important to understand, but it's not the be all, and it's not how you should be selecting books for your reader. Okay, so I said a lot of things. It's research based, but I feel like I was given a lot of opinions. Does anybody want to talk about it? Are we good?
This is Diana. It might be too specific of a question, but I recently got I have a third grader, and she got the beginning of grade reading test, and they gave me her result. And it was not proficient according to them.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to figure out like if I present books to her to kind of encourage her reading, should I look for books that are at her Lexile level, like the one that she got, or do I look for stuff and help her through the Lexile range where she should be at?
I would, as much as you can, because in school they're going to have like a box that's like her just right and her stretch and things like that. So she's going to get this message plenty. I would do like bring her and say, what do you want to read? And whatever it is, just be super encouraging. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to read this with you. That's so exciting. So whatever is her interest. And a lot of times, like little ones don't want to talk to their parents about it. They're like, oh, you want me to read whatever. Encourage her to come and like talk to a librarian or whoever is working there. And sometimes that makes a big difference, and we can offer some suggestion that might work for her. But if you're worried about her getting frustrated with what she chooses because she doesn't understand it, I would use this quick guide. This is just a guideline. When this is an issue for them, we call it the 5-finger rule. So just flip open a book that you guys chose together or that she wants to read to any page. And if there's more than 5 words on the page that she does not understand, that might be too hard for her right now. But remember that if you're doing a shared reading together, you can read whatever you want. If it takes you 20 minutes to read one page and talk about what's on there, that's okay, right? Because you're not winning by finishing the whole book. It's time spent reading, and positive time, like happy time. Does that make sense, Emily?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you for asking. That is my advice. Encouragement, letting her choose what she likes. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some alternate formats.
Okay.
But
May I ask you just one more question along with that? The way that I guess as a parent, the way to get reassured that she's actually reading is, I do try to ask her to read out loud to me, but a lot of the times, she doesn't want to.
Sure.
So then I still don't know if she's reading or just looking at the pictures or the comic pictures, the graphics. So I don't want to discourage or show frustration that I don't know whether she's on track or if she's actively reading. How do you strategize to kind of get like a shy out loud reader to kind of read out loud or to demonstrate? Yes.
Or, hi, I'm Elise, and I am our active reading coordinator here. And I would recommend for sure you as the parent sitting down and reading with her, even though she's third grade. Oftentimes at that point we'll send them off and let them read on their own. But we can't underestimate that power of you sitting side by side with her whenever you agree upon it. And even maybe take turns. So you say, well, I'll read this page and then you read that page, and then go about it that way. So then it's kind of like something you're doing together. Tara, were you going to say anything else to that? Speak to that?
Yeah, definitely shared reading for sure. I was also going to say that if she's reading a graphic novel and you're worried that she's just looking at the pictures, like she's still reading. She's still getting the storyline, and she's holding that book and she's like having that experience. She's going to absorb the information. Like can you imagine how boring it would be if you were like, I hate this page. I'm just going to hold it open because mom's looking at me. Like you're going to get something, you're going to do something with it. So I would definitely think she's reading. And I just lost my train of thought.
No, but we also have in the chat. Yeah, Chantel, definitely add, like, this is for all parents and caregivers to share what they do too.
Yes. What I was thinking too is like all the positive reinforcement, right? Like getting them really excited. So I agree with what Elise and Tara is saying, but even if I had a third grader who I'm not sure if they're reading when I send them in the room, maybe I want to look at that book before I even give it to them so that I can ask them questions after. So maybe I'm not going to stand over the child in this moment, but because I perused the book before they came, I can say, well, what did, character Sandy do? Or Sue, like whatever it is. And just the constant positive reinforcement. Like if you do this, then we can do that. And she needs to see you read too, like if it's a part of your lifestyle, like she sees you eat every day or exercise or brush your teeth, then they do what you do. So yeah, similar to what Tara was saying in the beginning, but third grade is a tricky age because like I'm independent, but it's like, are you really in there reading? So, and you need to like give them that moment where they're by themselves, but maybe you had those pre-questions before that you can ask because you looked through the book before you gave it to her.
That's great advice.
No, that's actually really good. Yeah.
And you might end up reading something you really like.
This is kind of a weird question. Just, is there such a thing as like a lazy reader? In that we've read, like, she grew up at the libraries. I was read to her at night. But then when it's her turn to read, she doesn't want to because mommy reads to her. And the whole attempt that I read one page, you read one page, that may get through 3 pages, but she just wants to hear mommy read to her. Is there honestly overcome that?
Yeah. If she's happy to have you read to her and just practice the ABCs with asking questions and get involved, she's going to become part of that book. She is still reading, even if you're the one reading it out loud to her. That's great. Be positive about it, be energetic about it. And then just to interject, like I'm somebody that, when they call on and, back in the day when they'd call on you in class and say like, okay, Tara, it's your turn to read out this paragraph, I would be like overcome with anxiety about reading aloud in a classroom. And I think so many kids feel like that. It's hard because that's a complex thing if you think about it. So you're reading it, you're understanding it, and then it's in your brain, and then you have to say it out loud. It seems like when someone's doing it that it's so fast, right? But that's a whole lot of things that are complicated that are happening. And kids get really insecure about like not pronouncing things right, or they get really stuck on what they didn't do right, or what word they didn't know, and they can get really stuck on that. So reading aloud is a really hard thing for a lot of kids. I hear it a lot. We do our reading buddies program where we're like one-on-one with a reader. And there's so many times that my reading buddy's like, can you read today? She's in 5th grade. Like sometimes she's tired. It's a lot of work. She'll get it though. Like, yes, encouragement. And I think sorry, we talked about the 5-finger rule. Okay, and I'm going to get to graphic novels.
Sorry, there was one other question in the chat, just like a quick little question about Lexiles. So is Lexile just one way to rate the level of the book? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, it's just one way. It really focuses on the difficulty, the perceived difficulty by the reader of the vocabulary that's in the book. So it doesn't, what I was trying to show with the 2-book comparison on there, it doesn't necessarily reflect what's like an appropriate book for somebody to be reading at that time. It's just one indicator. Again, all of these measures were there to quantify something, because we have a public education system, and you need to just, instead of just being like, oh, look at these kids, they learned so much this year, right? That would be great if we could just do that. Be like, look at these readers. But you need to show something. And that's why we have these levels. That's why we have this Lexile. That's why we have the beginning of the grade assessment, and then they have the end of the grade assessment, right? So Emily, I think you talked before about the beginning of the grade assessment. They're a lot less concerned with what the beginning of the grade assessment is. What they really want to do is compare that to the end of the grade assessment to show that there has been progress and that there has been improvement, right? So it's really easy for us as parents to absorb the anxiety and the focus that teachers have to have, that they have an importance on this, right? But it was never designed for pleasure reading, recreational reading, it's kids, get like weirdly competitive with their reading levels and stuff. And that's really not like, it doesn't really go with how a reader is. It really is the time spent reading. Okay. So even if you're like, oh my gosh, she's been staring at the same page for like 15 minutes. Is she really reading? Like, yeah, she's looking at that page. She's reading. Does that make sense?
I have a question to kind of piggyback back off that.
Yeah.
Like the Lexile, because I'm trying to figure out, like, I know on the standardized test, I see my child's Lexile, and so I'm trying to think, okay, what is a book that he can read where he can still enjoy it and not feel overwhelmed because it has language and words he doesn't understand. So as opposed to like just looking at the library's card, we used to call it card catalog, but whatever you all call it now, what's the way that I won't feel overwhelmed because we're not physically back at the library yet. And so I'm doing a lot of online stuff. So what ways would you all suggest? Because I go to the like North Carolina Kids Library, and I don't know, I want direction in that as far as outside of looking at the Lexile and outside of being overwhelmed by all the books on the juvenile section.
Yeah, it really can be overwhelming. And I can show, there's a simple pathway on the library website that you can just filter if you do know their Lexile range and you're not physically there to just be like, oh, like let's flip through and let's do the 5-finger rule to select. That's harder to do remotely. Here, let me jump in and show you. They have made this really easy. I would, if I were you, Tasha, so we're going to go to catalog. If you're putting books on hold, getting a bunch or something, I would get like more than you think, and then you bring that selection to your child. In Help Me Find, there's a simple pathway where you can find. So let's say we're looking for books that are in 601 to 650. Okay. And we're trying to, so what you're saying is you want to get within a Lexile that he is comfortable with.
I just want him to read and not have to ask me every other word, what's this word? Or if he has contraction, I want him to be independent, even though I'm still there, but I'm like, he's not going to grasp the concept of the story if every other word he's not understanding, or they have small text or something like that.
Okay, so you can limit here, right? And you're going to get a result. Let's see. Okay, there's 3,741 results, which is crazy. That's a lot. Okay, but it's a wide range. So then you can start to filter. So a 7th grader, correct?
Third, I mean second.
Third. Okay. So I'm just going to filter. I'm filtering. I searched and got a result just in that Lexile range. And then I filtered by children. Okay. Because there's adult books and YA books that are within this range. And then you can say, all right, well, let's just look at picture books. Okay, so now we have 7, which is a lot more reasonable. So if we were looking within 551 to 600 Lexile, and then we looked just at picture books, you can see some of these. You could show him this list. Be like, well, which one looks fun to you? Or you could put them all on hold and physically bring them home and be like, look through what is of interest. You know what he's interested in. So if you're like this, I do want to aim for like where he is at. That's one way to do it, so that basically he's going to understand the vocabulary that's in there. You can also you can also do, I'm going to go back to these, I promise. Graphic novels and audiobooks. These are really, really wonderful. And I know that they get a little bit of like, from parents sometimes. But graphic novels, like we have this idea that it's like all superheroes. It's just a form. It's not a genre. So they're about all sorts of things. They're about friends. So Owly is great for like a really, really, really young child with a very limited vocabulary. They can read Owly. They can understand the story. Owly was originally published with no words at all. And it was a full story told in panels with illustrations. So they can definitely read a lot of these on their own. And there's a reason why they're so popular. They love reading graphic novels. And actually, going back a little bit to the bilingual learners that we talked about, looking at art in a sequence and reading those words together is a form of code switching. And that's it's a great workout for your brain. There's no other way to put it. It really is a wonderfully educating way to read. It is definitely reading. It can increase speed and comprehension, and they're going to become a reader if they've been holding a graphic novel over and over and over again and reading those. They're a reader. They're a reader now.
I don't understand what a graphic novel is.
A graphic novel. Okay.
I don't understand. He doesn't like the audio book, so I've been trying to find the books that has the words and he can read the read-alongs.
Okay. The read-alongs, read-alongs are great. Audiobooks are great. If not every reader likes them, like they can build comprehension and pronunciation. A graphic novel is what we used to call a comic book, like Garfield. Like a comic strip was how it started. But they have become an entire there's graphic novels that have won Pulitzer Prizes. There's adult graphic novels. These are not just because we used to think of them as like Archie or something like that. They have really, really come a long way. And at the library, there's a whole section of graphic novels. And you can, when you're looking at the catalog, you can browse by this form and look at what he might be interested in. Yeah, so a graphic novel is just told in this sequential way. So there's a panel with illustrations. There might be speech bubbles. There might be like a blurb of narration underneath.
Can I also just say one thing?
Yeah.
I think too, Tasha, when you were saying you want him to read independently and not ask you like questions every minute, right? Because you feel like he's not understanding it. But now that you shared with me, like he's so young, I think that's the positive thing. Like he is trying to digest all this material and may not understand and he's asking questions. So that is like, to me, like an upward trajectory, like of a good reader, especially because he's so young. If he was a little bit older, then maybe, but I don't think the independent reading happens until they get a little older. What do you think, Elise or Tara, like when they can really sit down and really understand and not ask the questions? Would you agree that that kind of happens at a later elementary age? Because he's only in second grade.
I think kindergartners are fully capable of sitting and reading independently. depending on what text they choose, kind of like Tara was telling us earlier. I mean, like research shows us if a child has that background knowledge about what they're reading, that it doesn't really matter the Lexile because they're bringing all that to the table and they have all of that with them. I think I would use Tara's strategies, like she's saying too, with giving your child choice. And if you want to narrow it to that band and make sure, even consider that that teacher might be sitting home like the instructional level, and that would be what they're using in the classroom. But oftentimes we might want what we call the independent level. So what that child can do by themselves. So I would even, whatever the teacher says is the band, like go back one even. Tara, do you have anything else you would add to that?
I would also suggest maybe using our resource tumble books. So it would be, it's going to be on a screen, but it's going to show them the book. It's going to show the words. It's going to read it out to them, and then there's quizzes and stuff at the end. So if you're looking for something that like he can do on his own, those can be really helpful.
How do I access tumble books? Is it through the nckidslibrary.org or the CM?
It's in the handout. Do you want me to show you? Are you all okay with time? I can do a screen share and show you what it looks like to find it.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so just going back to the beginning, cmlibrary.org. This is on your handout, like this exact pathway. Go to resources, and there's a whole bunch. We're going to click on A to Z. This is every digital resource that we have. One thing I like to tell to everybody whenever I'm showing them a digital resource from the library, this is not Google. You can't just find this online. So like a lot of students come in with a project. They said, my teacher said no websites. I'm like, this isn't a website. This is something that we pay for. It's a database. So it's not available unless you pay for it. We pay for it. And you have access to it with your taxes. So this is an A to Z list. This is where, for example, encyclopedias live now. We don't have encyclopedias bound like in a long thing anymore because it's updated so frequently. So it's alphabetical, and you can just go to Tumble Books. If you're at home and you're not in the library branch, you'll probably have to put in your library card. But that pathway is in the handout that Elise is going to send to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you all for your participation and your questions. I love it. All right, so we're kind of running up on almost 1 o'clock here, but definitely don't overlook audiobooks. Don't overlook graphic novels. They're still reading. Very, very important, very helpful. Some readers love this. And let's remember like the encouragement part. I have a couple quotes here. We had Jason Reynolds come for Community Read earlier this year. And I love this quote that he said, that reading is the only weight you can lift to build the brain muscle. So again, let's remember that time spent reading is our #1 indicator. And then I polled a bunch of kids that I know in my world here. I said, what did it feel like when you thought, when you understood you could read, or whatever, however I put it. And look at the words that they used. Really happy was the most frequent answer, right? They're so proud of themselves. And we just want to build on that. Like, we don't want to be like, oh, that's too easy for you. Or did you understand that? Like, encouragement to build on these feelings that they're describing, right? Because if they're happy about the experience and they're comfortable with the experience and they like what's happening and they're relating to the text, to the book, to whatever it is they're reading, and we're encouraging about it, you're going to get there. You're going to be where you want to be. All right, guys. I have 1 o'clock, but please,
Last question. The
Yeah.
stuff that was put in the chat, because I'm trying to listen to you also. I didn't really go back to reading the chat what I needed to. Like, I know you said you put a resource, Elise, about the some kind of program you mentioned it, Terry. You were saying that a lot of people may have already had this class. I don't know what you were referring to, and I think Elise put something in the chat. So is that going to be on the handout as well?
I don't think that's on the handout, but I can put it in the follow-up email for sure. It was just about our active reading programs. If you're interested in those, definitely.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Please.
Good.
Thank you, guys.
The active reading training is it's so invaluable. I absolutely love it. I'm not kidding. I learned something learning how to do the active reading trainings that I didn't know when I went to library school for specializing in children's literature. It's not, I promise you, it's not complicated. It's fun, it's easy, and it's just practices that you can learn how to do. It's very, very helpful.
Thank you. I look forward to receiving it, and I appreciate you guys' time. I have a renewed interest. I know. First takeaway: go to the library, not do online. Thank you.
I gotcha. Yeah, you guys are great. Thank you so much for being with me today. Is there anything else from the chat or anything that like we need to go back?
Well, yeah, this is Diana. I just have one more kind of question, and it has to do just a specific question. So my daughter is left-handed, and then third grade, and she, I catch her writing her word or a lot of her letters backwards still, and so she has kind of the opposite. So sometimes I wonder, like, is there a way to tell where it's just kind of like, just she's in learning mode, and because she's left-handed, I'm pretty sure that there's an instinct to direct your pen in a different direction. And I just wonder if in her brain, if there's something where, she wants to go opposite of what right-handed people do, like, and maybe that's giving her a little bit more of a struggle. Like, is there such a thing, or is there kind of things to look out for where she might need extra help?
I don't know the research on like specifically on left-handed versus right-handed, like learning how to write and do letters and stuff. It's a really interesting question. But I do know that it's very, very common for kids to put things in the wrong direction. That is very common, whether you're right-handed or left-handed. And sometimes like kids get stuck on one letter. Like my son's name is JD, and his D's were backwards for the longest time. I was like, this is an unfortunate one to miss, because that was his name. That's his name. It's very, very common. But what grade is the little one in?
She's in third grade.
Okay. I mean, I hear you saying, should I be worried? Teachers are going to tell you if there's something that you're like, this is what you need to hear right now, that she might need some resources and things like that. I don't think you need to be worried unless you're hearing from teachers that there's some signs that she might need.
Yeah, that's what I would say. I was a former teacher, and I would definitely say the same thing, like that your child's teacher, they have all these benchmarks, and they're going to reach out to you and perhaps even tell you little interventions that you could do at home to put in place, but definitely don't fret about it and even if there is something, like there's so much now that we can do to make sure that everybody is where they need to be and a successful reader.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, no, you always kind of question yourself as a parent, like, I'm doing what I can and, you see results from one child to the next, and it's like, where did I go wrong? It's just like, blame myself. Like,
no, it's very common what you're saying. And I'd also like to say, like, what I've noticed is that these kids missed a vital part of their education last year. Elementary age, that's a whole lot to miss to try to be expected to understand in our hodgepodge of hybrid and no school and this, and then school is just, full force ahead. It's like we didn't go back a year for everybody, but everybody was affected by that, all across the board. So I wouldn't worry. I understand like the wanting to know if everything is okay. It sounds like everything is okay. That these are very, very common things, and that you would know if there was something that you should be doing that you aren't doing. So I would focus on, being a reader and having conversations with them and just being so encouraging of her and whatever she's interested in. Like, oh, you're reading that mermaid book again?
Thank you. No,
you must love it.
It's not all bad, Yeah, no, I was excited. She was like, Mommy, I want the I Survived Shark Attack books. I was like, whatever floats your boat, I will get you anything to do with I Survived Shark Attacks. Thank you.
It's super popular. All right, y'all, this has been a really great session. Please reach out to Elise or me if you need more resources, and the library is always here for this is our bread and butter. This is what we do. So if there's more that you want to talk about, give us a call. Go on library chat, stop by, what have you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Kasha.
Yes, thank y'all so
Have a
much
good
for
day.
coming. Yes, y'all have a good day. We have these parent lunch and learns that happen about every other week. So feel free to sign up at another time. And thank you all so much for coming. And thank you, Tara, for sharing all of that great information with us.
Thank you so much.